PhD, Executive Director, SPME. Asaf Romrovsky has joined us again. And we're still talking about the Israelis actually want a ceasefire, but we need the return of the hostages. I think that's a minimum. Good morning, Asaf.
Good morning. Thank you for having me as always.
I love having you because I want that intelligence where I don't have to listen to the national news just beat the drum of I hate Israel. I don't want to hear it anymore. I can't stand it. Because do you or do you not agree that Hamas could end this 2 years ago by just giving back the hostages? It would have been over.
100%. I mean, we have to understand, and you and I have discussed this in the past, I mean, the only lifeline and the only insurance card that Hamas has is the hostages. And the fact of the matter is, and the unfortunate reality is, historically, Israel has, to their detriment, proven that they, of course, will pay for dead or alive hostages, and Hamas knows that, and so they abuse that. And that's been the game and the psychological warfare that, unfortunately, we've been facing now. The current deal on the table over the weekend, we've heard from President Trump that he is pushing hard to make a deal, but the deal is a all-or-nothing deal. We're talking about the remaining 48 hostages, dead and alive, all in a one deal, not a phase deal, for the exchange of potentially thousands of active terrorists that would be released and would basically go back to fortify the bench. But that being said, the number one priority for Israel today is, of course, the hostages, as it's always been, but at the same time, they're also on the cusp of going into Gaza City, which is where they're basically rattling Hamas's chain, and Hamas is trying to put the brakes and see what they can do before Israel goes into Gaza City.
So the fact that Americans died, it shocks me that we haven't done more. Would you agree?
100%. I mean, I think that, look, the lost in translation, and what is shocking to me, we're about to mark 2 years since the war has begun on October 7th. The level and the increase of denialism of 10/7 is staggering. I mean, the fact of the matter is that people still can't come to grips with the brutality, the maiming, the raping, the ongoing abuse, the abuse of hostages that are currently still in captivity in Gaza. Hamas sends out these videos as part of the psychological warfare. But we have mounting evidence of the hostages who were released about that every day that goes by, how they were abused physically, psychologically. The only people that are starving in Gaza are the hostages themselves. Yet the world has turned a blind eye and continues to believe that the Palestinians can do no wrong and the Israelis can do no right.
Mm-hmm. And it's literally driving me nuts, Asaf. Every time they talk about this, so we're an ABC affiliate, so I have to turn the news off at the top of the hour because they cannot report the news correctly when it comes to this conflict. They can't do it.
No, I mean, and the moral equivalency that's been played out for some reason, and the lack of understanding that we're dealing with a culture of denialism, the culture of death, the eliminationist mentality that's part of Hamas's understanding, and the refusal of the world to believe that whatever, any of these crazy announcements of creations of Palestinian statehood and things of the like, that all plays into the Hamas playbook, which basically leaves Hamas to say, we don't need to do anything because the world will support us no matter what we do, despite our genocidal jihadi agenda. And I think that that's part of the problem that we're seeing play out here. And I think that the world, I mean, notwithstanding, and yes, there are problems inside of Israel domestically, as there would have been anywhere. But the fact of the matter is, Israel is dealing with an urban warfare in a situation that no other country has ever dealt with, and they're doing it successfully. And I think that is also worthy of note, notwithstanding the manufactured nutrition crisis and famine and a lot of misinformation as to actually what is going on the ground in Gaza. There is more aid that is going into Gaza today than there ever was. What is not being reported is the fact that Hamas and Hamas affiliates steal the goods and abuse it from the population. And it's not the Israelis' fault. It's Hamas's fault, as it's always been from the beginning.
And it will always be that way because they are terrorists. They don't care about the Gazan people. They don't care about the Palestinian people, whether they're Arabs, Christians, Jews. They don't care. I guess they probably killed the Jews first, but the fact that they will not give up the hostages means they don't want this conflict to end. And I keep telling everybody, it's like they went into the kibbutz that day. They didn't just rob a bank. They killed people, babies, kids at concerts, burned parents in front of their children, then cut their heads off. There was blood everywhere. It was helter-skelter. And yet people are mad at Israel for coming in with boots ready. I don't understand why they can't get this through their heads. They're like, well, Israel was mean to them all this time. Hamas is a terrorist group. You can't be mean to a terrorist group because they are terrorists. It's what they do. And they've leveled the skyscrapers now because, there are civilians in them. They're taking shelter there. Hamas is hiding in there, in between those civilians, so that the news can say, oh, all these people have died from famine because of Israel not letting them across the line. And they blew up this building where the civilians have nowhere else to go, and this hospital. And they're just so full of crap.
100%. I mean, again, facts don't matter, and don't confuse them with the facts. Is the guiding agenda of Hamas. Hamas embeds itself within the civilian population to manufacture this theatrics that they're putting out there as far as what Israel is doing. The fact of the matter is that Israel has been able successfully to disentangle whatever they can of the civilian population from Hamas itself. They've been, every time they were told they couldn't move the population, when there was debate back in the Biden administration out of Rafah, they were able to do so, over 1 million people. I mean, the fact of the matter is that in contrast to Hamas, which sees everybody as a legitimate target, Israel actually does distinguish between belligerent combatants and between the civilian population, whereas Hamas never did. And that's part of their agenda.
Can you tell me why the neighboring countries, because everybody says Israel has them trapped there and that's why they're starving to death. It's not true. Other countries won't take them. Why?
Well, because they know exactly what they bring in. I mean, look, the best case study has to do with the Egyptians. I mean, the Egyptians have refused to open up the border because they know exactly what the Muslim Brotherhood, which Hamas does. I mean, the Muslim Brotherhood started in Egypt in 1928. They know exactly how they've destroyed the country. During the stint of Mohammed Morsi, when the Muslim Brotherhood was in control of Egypt, they almost destroyed Egypt. For them, they understand the threat of terrorism. So from their perspective, keep it, the responsibility and put the onus on the Israelis and prevent that from coming into our borders is an incentive for them, even though, factually speaking, Gazans are 100% Egyptian. These are their brethren. So again, begs the question about how do you treat your brethren? So as far as responsibility of Gaza, when the Trump proposal came out that, the population would move until they rehabilitate, reconstruct Gaza, and Egypt and the Jordanians should open up the border to try to move the populations, of course they refused, because they see, their response was, reconstruction can only happen in Gaza while they stay in Gaza, which basically allows, you're putting Band-Aids on the problem without solving the issue, because Hamas built an entire terror tunnel infrastructure going miles and hundreds of miles away inside of Gaza that needs to be, cleansed, that needs to be destroyed, that needs to be rebuilt. And nobody has been willing to take on that responsibility.
And I think that's the bottom line here, because before the war, it was beautiful. I mean, the shoreline was beautiful. There were so many parts of the country, which belongs to Israel, by the way, that was absolutely beautiful. Israel didn't say you can't come here if you're Arab. You can't come here if you identify as a Palestinian. You can't come here if you're white or English or Israeli or whatever. They just let everybody in. And they moved in and they kind of took over, and then they said, this is our land now. So you can't tell us what to do in our own land. And Israel's like, sorry, that's our land. That's an argument as old as the sand is that's in that area. That's been going on forever, since biblical times. They've been fighting over the land in these areas. But it really is Israel's land.
Yeah, and every time, historically speaking, and you look at the history of the peace process, every time there's been a proposal on the table, the Arab Palestinian population has opted to reject rather than to accept and to coexist. I mean, and that's been the bottom line. The bottom line is mutual recognition, which they have refused to do for years. And the fact of the matter is that the current proposal is now coming out of the French and the British and the Australian and any other European country out there. They basically want to reward Hamas by basically creating a fantasy state, but without doing the work. Nobody's actually willing to sit down and actually do the actual work that is required. For the Palestinians, they have learned over the years that it's better to be a victim of a world than to be a citizen of the world. So they basically are working on this entitlement without actually willing to do the actual work to do what is needed to actually create a functioning state rather than a failed state.
Right. So what do we do? I mean, they won't give the hostage. I mean, they're dead. So what's the point of keeping them? They're decomposing their bones. Let the families have their closing moments and let them put their people to rest. What is the point here?
Well, the belief is, according to Israeli intelligence and some American intel as well, that there are potentially 10 living hostages. And the numbers, are unverified as far as what exactly is going on there. And every time Israel continues to go into Gaza, they find more bodies. Again, how the tally goes down. But I think that, yes, there has to be some kind of closure. This is part of the psychological warfare that has been playing out here. And Hamas knows that. And so they play the game because they know the moment they have no leverage, there's nothing to stop Israel from continuing and going in and taking Hamas out. Hamas cannot be part of the day after tomorrow. And if they are, that is a total and absolute failure for the state of Israel, because that goes counter to the objectives of what the war has been, since it started 2 years ago.
And so here we are. We're at a stalemate. It's not going to change. Nobody's just going to give up. And Bibi Netanyahu's done whatever he can, but the drumbeat again on the news continues that Israel just keeps coming in and turning everything into rubble. If that were true and they were rubbling everything as much as they say they were, the area is not that big. It would be a pile of mush by now. So they are being very strategic about what they do or don't take out. And they are trying very hard not to hurt civilians, but Hamas is making that impossible. True statement?
100%. That is part of the Hamas strategy. I mean, Hamas wants to manufacture whatever kind of death, famine, and ever theater so the world can showcase and put the blame on Israel and deflect from their own actions.
Yeah. Well, where can they go to learn more? I'm out of time. I could talk about this forever with you because I am just so sick of Israel getting the hard ball and Hamas getting the softball when it comes to news coverage from the national news networks, because they've got it backwards.
100%. Our website is spme.org. All our information is there.
Thank you so much. Asaf Romrosky, PhD, is Executive Director at SPME. Look him up online and learn the truth about what's happening in this Gazan conflict. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Have a good one. Bye.